Is there a way out of depression and anxiety?
Find out on this episode of LED Live.
Welcome everyone to another episode of LED Live. We are glad to have our guests back again for this episode, Dr. and Mrs. Hellzinger and Danique. And thank you guys for joining us today to talk about depression and anxiety and recovering from that. Because as we talked about and kind of ended the last episode, we ended it on the note of hope, that there is hope for people who have depression and anxiety, and they can recover from that. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
So for those who are watching the first time, you are a medical doctor.
Yes.
And primarily general practice or family medicine, but you're also board certified in lifestyle medicine?
Yes.
Okay. And Mrs. Hellzinger, by the time this comes out, you will have graduated
Right.
with a degree in?
Clinical mental health counseling.
Okay.
Awesome.
And Danique used to volunteer for our ministry, and you're here as both a product of some of the programs we're talking about and now going on the other side helping people who have struggled from depression and anxiety.
That's right. I had it myself, went through the Netley Depression Anxiety Recovery Program, had therapy, and now am a small group facilitator for the Netley Depression and Anxiety Recovery Program, the community-based one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we love facilitating together.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
Yes.
So somebody may have depression, they may have anxiety, and they may be wondering, what do I do? How do I get out of this? How do we start?
Well, I try to, when people come to me with these kind of things, they usually have been to a doctor who has put them on a antidepressant medication.
Okay.
That's usually the first line treatment that people use, is to go on an
Sure.
antidepressant medicine.
Sure.
And then if they don't get better, the doses are adjusted, or they add counseling. And people get sent off to a counselor, and that's usually what ends up happening. And if people don't respond, they get labeled as a non-responder. Maybe get sent to a psychiatrist who gives them higher doses, more drugs, and that's usually the line of treatment that goes on. And people get very depressed and discouraged, particularly when you are following the advice of your physician. You're doing what the psychiatrist is saying, you're taking your medicine as prescribed, but you don't get any better.
It's not working.
It's not working. So by the time they come to you then and want to know, is there anything else that we can do, they're very, without hope, and they don't feel like anything that you're going to suggest is going to help them.
And I should mention that, depression is no joke. I think that in the last couple of years, maybe the last 2 years or so, mostly young people on social media have started coming out saying, I struggle with this and that. And it's become more acceptable to talk about. But I had a friend recently tell me that, hey, I struggle with mental health and my family doesn't understand. They don't understand. They think it's just a small little thing. And actually what's interesting is when I was a kid, I actually also had depression as a kid, 12 years old. And I went to see a psychiatrist. He said, 1 session, you're fine. That was so ridiculous. I never went back there, obviously. And eventually I went and talked to these child therapists, and I was there for a couple of months. But you see how even people who are in the field sometimes don't understand. And so it's not a joke. It's as serious as someone who has, let's say, a broken leg. It's as serious as someone who has cancer and can die from it, because people die from mental illness because they commit suicide. It's that serious sometimes.
Okay.
It's very lethal.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, that's the reason why, we recommend coming to this 8-week program. It's 1 night a week. You get all your materials. You have a variety of reading materials. This is cognitive behavior therapy from a Christian point of view. Also, Dr. Neil Nedley's textbook is the prescribed textbook, which I know of a girl who was suffering severely from depression, and she couldn't afford the residential program, which is in Weimar, California, and she there was no smaller program nearby. So she took this book and started reading it and started doing everything was in the book, and she got better.
Wow. So it's
Yes.
like, you can pay to go into college, or you can learn from using YouTube or whatever, or researching yourself, looking for it. So if you really want the help and you can't afford it, there are cheaper alternatives such as this book that can help.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing about this, and this is coming back to why I think this program is better than any other program out there, is the fact that this program is designed to look for the cause. You see,
Yeah.
now when you research the literature out there and say, what are the causes of depression? You will get depressed because there's hundreds of causes, okay?
Yeah.
And so people look at this and they say, how in the world am I going to address all of these things? But Dr. Nedley has done significant research on this and found that you can categorize these causes into 10 categories, which he calls hit categories.
Okay.
And so once you go through a test that you can take before to see where you fall and what are the categories in your life that you have a problem with. And then you can identify the areas in your life that you need help with. And then what you can do is not look at, here's a list of 100 things that causes depression. You now can look at, these are all ways that I haven't tried before. You see, it's not just there's all these causes, these are different things that I haven't tried to fix. So now you, instead of making the person feel hopeless, oh my, look at all these causes of depression, how in the world am I ever going to get better? You can say, there's a lot of things that I haven't tried. And if I try all these things may happen. And so this is a comprehensive approach.
So let me ask you a question. Let's say I take the test and there's 5 things out of those 10, and then somebody else I know takes the test and they get 5 of the other things that are on the list. Is the treatment going to be different for those people? Or is it basically, it doesn't really matter which ones out of the 10 or how many out of the 10, the treatment's going to be the same because it's addressing all the root causes.
The program is designed to address all the root causes.
Okay.
So whether you've got this 3 or 4, or you have that 5 or 6, it doesn't really matter. We all can benefit from dealing with loss. Now, you may not have loss in your life right now, but if you live long enough,
Sure.
you're going to have to deal with loss, okay? A spouse may die, a parent may die, you may lose a job, whatever. And so you're going to have to. So even that may not be a hit for you right now. You may have other hits because you're at a different stage of your life. You can still benefit from learning all that is there to be learned about a comprehensive approach where you address all the different hit categories
And
all
I
the
have them.
causes.
I have them right here. If we
Sure,
can read
let's talk
them.
about
This is from the workbook that we use in the program, and so it says here: frontal lobe category, lifestyle, so that like diet, exercise, that kind of stuff. Circadian rhythm, sleep.
Sleep-wake cycle.
Nutrition, if you eat a bunch of junk food all day long, it's not going to feed your brain very well. Toxins, it can be like a mercury poisoning or something like that, which mainly comes from fish. Social / inadequate coping / grief, addiction, medical condition, developmental. That's where you're looking at, a dysfunctional home growing up, abuse, and then genetic. So those are 10 categories.
Yeah.
And
broad.
I just want to say that the mental health hospital has its place. If you or someone is feeling very suicidal, it is important for them to go to a place where they can be medically supervised and taken care of until they feel better. However, like with Dr. Nedley's program, it just gives us a lot of lifestyle medicine alternatives. It gives us natural ways of treating the same thing instead of just, taking all those drugs, all those meds that, the mind is not really able to process whatever you're going through. If you're suffering from a loss or, a very, very difficult situation, yes, the medicine but is on short-term basis only. Dr. Nedley and my husband, give that medicine on short-term basis only, with the goal of coming off that medicine at the longest for a year, 6 months to a year. But unfortunately, we see many people that are for 10, 15 years, 20 years sometimes on those medicines. But this program gives you the alternatives so that you can incorporate natural ways of treating depression, anxiety. It's also very good for bipolar.
Yeah.
Okay. So it seems like I remember recently getting a text message on my phone or something that now, the government and society has recognized mental health as a big enough issue. There's a quick number you can dial now, right? I think it's like 988 or something.
Suicide
So if you're
hotline.
having suicidal issues, you call that, 988, and you can get some help immediately. So that's good.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we live in a society that is, and in our medical system in general, is pharmaceutical driven. There's a drug for every ailment, and the doctor never runs out of drugs. If this one doesn't work, I have another one in the bag that I'm going to give you.
Or here's one for a side effect of that one.
So there's always stuff. So people have a unrealistic expectation of what the medications can do for you. Now, I'm not a person that say you don't prescribe no medications. Medications has its place, and there's a place for these things to be used. But it's more for the very severe type cases, okay? And then again, also with a plan of addressing all the other causes, and with the idea that down the line in the pretty near future that I'm going to try and wean this person off his medication, or at least have him on a much lower dosage.
Yeah. Yes. You bring up a good point, and I've actually seen the same approach from the naturalistic side, where we take something that's a natural herb or a remedy or something and treat it like it's a medication. Oh, you just need to take this tea, and it's all better. Which I agree, there's probably a place where it probably helps, but if it's like, well, you need to relax or you're not sleeping well, then why? Why are you not sleeping well? And it's not that you just need this tea. You need to figure out why are you not sleeping well? Why are you not relaxing? Why do you have, that anxiety?
Yeah.
So
And that's something that I think really comes from getting therapy. And again, it's much less of a taboo nowadays to get therapy. I think there's still, for men, I think it's still harder to get into therapy. It's because it's the masculinity, and it's like feeling weak. And, I've run into many people that had serious issues that would not admit any of their issues and would just not get therapy because they're like, no. But it's very helpful. I've had several years of therapy, and it's changed my life because you go back to the root. You fix the root. So like, let's say you have diabetes type 2, and you're extremely obese, and your diet consists of fried chicken and Coke, then it's probably not really going to help you that much to take medication for that. But if you say, well, let me change my lifestyle, let me eat healthier and exercise, then you can very often reverse the diabetes. And so it's the same thing with mental health, that if you go back to the root cause, and sometimes, like it said here, it could be a genetic hit, but how many hits was it that if you're under this number of hits that you are depression free? So like, even if you have a genetic hit, it doesn't mean you have to have depression. How much was it?
Anything more than 3 is when you begin to qualify as for a major depression episode. Yes.
So even if you have a genetic hit or developmental hit, you can't change that. It doesn't mean you have to have depression if you take care of the other things, therapy and having a healthy lifestyle.
Right, and I just want to say that counseling is a gift. It's especially a Christian counselor that doesn't just look to themselves, or that you're looking inside yourself for solutions, but that you are you're asking God, you're asking Jesus to be the wonderful counselor and come into that counseling session, and that counselor is coming alongside you and walking with you, supporting you through whatever you're going through. Counseling is a gift.
Yeah, even the Bible talks about, for one, it talks about listening, being slow to anger, and what is it talking about? A lot about listening, though. And then...
That's in James.
Yeah.
Quick to listen.
Quick to listen. And also, there's verses that talk about, a fool doesn't take...
Counsel.
think,
Doesn't take
counsel.
advice. Yeah,
So
counsel.
so it's a God-given gift, counsel and listening. And I like that you brought up, it's very important, to understand that just because somebody has mental health, it seems like there's a stigma with that. We're like, no, it's demonic or it's something else. No, it's an organ just like the rest of your body. And if you have something wrong with your heart, a doctor's going to go in there and put a stent in or whatever because there's something wrong with that organ.
Right.
And so getting to the root is very important. And sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. We live in a day and age where hardly anybody is socializing outside of typing, and there's all kinds of misinterpretations. I mean, I could send a text to my wife, and because there's no body language and inflection, she could take it the wrong way or something, And so just having a person available that can listen and give good counsel and get to the root of this thing is way more beneficial than, oh, you're feeling depressed, this will make you happy, I got a pill for that. And I just think that's the wrong approach.
How it often happens in religion that I really have an issue with is just pray about it.
Yeah.
Like, why are we treating mental health differently from a physical illness? When, like you said, it's the brain, it's an organ. We talked about in the last episode that there's neural pathways being made in our brain and that we have to change. It's not just a philosophy and idea, it's an actual physical thing. And just to say, well, just pray about it or God fixes everything. It's like you have a broken arm. No, just pray about it. No, you need to go to a doctor and get it fixed. You get a cast.
But we see it as a weakness, because we feel that we're not in control of our life, and so therefore it's different than just a broken arm. But you're right; you can't just pray for the broken arm and hope it heals. You've got to do something, and so you have to do something for the brain as well.
Well, and I believe that God works together in that situation with the physician, a Christian, or with your physician, or God is working together with that counseling. And we have seen the power of God working in this Nedley Depression Anxiety Recovery Program, And anyway, it's just really powerful.
So I want to start to walk through our audience, like. They want to recover from this, okay? So I'm realizing, I'm taking the medication, I'm depressed, nothing's working, I keep going to my doctor, they keep upping my dose, it's not working. So I see somebody like you, and you have me go through this test that identifies these markers. Now what? What kind of things am I going to start to encounter on my road to recovery? What does that process look like? And then let's hopefully we'll get to like stories or testimonies of people who have had this work in their life.
Well, there's obviously different kinds of people out there. There are people that are mildly depressed.
Okay.
And they recognize their situation. They want to help, and they're willing to help themselves, and they are self-driven. So many of those people can pick up the tools, and they can on their own, self-motivated, go through the program and do the things themselves and implement all the changes, and they do well. It's like somebody that wants to lose weight, they implement the principles and they lose weight. And others have to go to a program where there's other people that support them and that help them, and that they can help with each other to get better. And then there's people that need to be admitted. They need a boot camp. They need to be in a residential program because they need somebody to take them by the hand and to not just encourage them, but to actually take them there.
Walk them through it.
And so somebody that's a little bit more of a stronger hand. So you need to lay that out and see where your patient is and what you can do for them, and then go from there as you implement all these things.
Okay.
So there is an online program available from drnedleyhealthsolutions.com. There is an online program available, but the best thing to do is to go onto the website, nedleydepressionthewayOut.com.
Okay.
No, it's Nedley Depression Recovery. There's two different websites. One is depressionrecovery.com. That is for the small program. Then there's depressionthewayout.com, and that one is for the residential program. And so look for a small program near you. That is the number one thing. Dr. Nedley himself told me that little program is the biggest bang for your buck, because it's almost as successful as the residential program, and there might be a program near you.
Yes.
So you're identifying people where they're at when they come to you, and then you're saying, you're really the type that, you could probably read these books, gain the information, probably be fine. You know, you're mostly there. And then there's the people that are going to come to you and you're like, you know, you need to be in this small program. We can walk you through it. And then there's the people that it's like,
I refer
you need more
them to a
advanced
program.
help.
Yes.
So you're helping gauge where they're at.
Yes.
So what you do, though, I think, is that middle program where they're not necessarily, you're not referring them because you're helping them. So and you're not telling them to take the books home necessarily. You're helping them walk through this small program that you know, where you're saying is the best bang for your buck program. So let's say I enroll in that program. It's 8 weeks.
Yes.
And what's going to happen in those 8 weeks?
Well, it's a program that has 8 sessions.
Okay.
And so the person comes once a week.
Okay.
So it's a once a week commitment of 2 hours.
Sounds doable.
Yeah, that sounds pretty doable. And so in that time, they will get a lecture on a specific topic, and it's usually the various hit categories that we address. Give them the tools that they need to do to turn some of those things around.
Okay.
And they have some homework that they have to go and do at home. There's a workbook that we work through. And then after the 1 hour lecture, then there's a small group session where these things are discussed and where the people work through the workbook together.
So to share some of the tools, because I think that's what you're trying to find out that we have. It's very simple things. Like in one of our first few sessions, we go through one exercise, right? So when I went through the program, I tried to walk for an hour each day because I discovered, if I walk for 2 hours each day, then I don't have to be on this medication I'm on anymore. And so I was like, I want to get off this stuff. And I actually weaned off the medication after I finished the program. So exercise and walking is a very powerful way to do exercise, or interval, which is where if, let's say you're not a runner, you're just a walker, you go up a hill fast for like 30 seconds or so, and then maybe a minute you do some walking. That is really good for anxiety. So exercise is a very beneficial thing to do, mostly cardio, because you want to get the blood flowing. And the reason why is that blood flows and then it gets to the brain, which you need blood circulation in the frontal lobe in order for you to overcome your depression. Another thing is a plant-based diet. So we actually have in the back of this book, there's recipes for people to try out. But I personally, in my small group, always recommend simple things. We all have a phone, so I recommend apps. So there's the documentary Forks Over Knives about a plant-based diet. They have for like $5, they have an app. And they have so many recipes and they keep updating them. So it's very affordable compared to an actual cookbook that's maybe $15 and you just have it on your phone. So that's another thing we do. And then some other small thing is a gratefulness journal. Now again, I'm a millennial, so I use an app. So there's, I don't know if it's on Android, but on the iPhone, there's an app called Grateful. And it reminds you every single night at a certain time that you set for yourself, hey, it's time to journal. And then all it asks is, it has different prompts, like what's something nice somebody said to you today, what made you smile today. Because if you're so depressed and you have a really bad day, you're not going to see anything good in that day. But then, we tell people, the sun was shining today. Isn't that something to be grateful for? Or you woke up today, you're breathing, you have a spouse, you have children. The fact that you came here, you're in this program, that's something to be grateful for. So we teach them to think like that. And there's a few more things in there as well.
I like how this is holistic because you go back to the exercise. It's like, well, not only does it help your mental health, we're all sitting around too much anyway, right? I mean, we need to get up more anyway. So you're killing multiple birds with one stone by saying, I'm going to go outside and walk for an hour. It's going to help my mental health. It's going to help my physical health, and, you're going to compound the effects that are going on. So that's great.
Yeah, it's a comprehensive program. The more things you implement, the greater the result.
The greater the effect,
So it's going to teach you also to, besides trying to eat as much as possible on a plant-based diet, because when you have cholesterol and a high-fat diet clogging the arteries in your brain, that's when your brain is going to feel depressed. We all know that if you ate a high-fat meal, you feel very sleepy and you just don't feel good, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing is like incorporating ground flax seeds, chia seeds. Those all are brain food. It's nutrition for the brain.
It's omega-3,
Yeah.
plant-based omega-3, no fish.
That is very important to incorporate that in your breakfast and to have a good whole wheat type of breakfast. Hopefully, maybe even with a hot cereal, and have your berries with that. The berries are some of the high antioxidant. Fruits, and then of course you want to incorporate your green leafies. So nutrition for your brain, thinking, and then hydration.
Drinking water.
Yes.
Yeah, your brain needs water.
Right.
Yeah.
When your brain is dehydrated, it is not functioning optimally.
You feel foggy
true.
and
Right.
yeah.
So one thing I don't know how many people know, but there's something called heart disease. We call it heart disease, but really what's happening is it's not that cholesterol and hardening of the arteries only happens in your heart, right? It's actually a whole body problem. And so circulation is diminished to all of your body. And I remember, this is kind of a funny story. I took it was biochemistry and chemistry major in college. And in my Biochem 2 class, I remember we had to study, what was that medication? It's for male dysfunction,
Viagra.
It's for Viagra. And so we're talking about Viagra. And the reason is, the guy goes to the doctor and he's like, hey, things aren't working properly, and thinks he needs Viagra. And the doctor, it's like the first tip off to the doctor that, well, you're at risk for heart disease because you don't have proper blood flow and circulation to your whole body. And it's a symptom, but it's not just affecting that part of your body. It's affecting your whole body. So a lot of people don't know that. So I like to bring that up because it's a whole body problem.
Yeah, it's, erectile dysfunction, it can be the first sign of heart disease. But if it's a sign of heart disease, it can also be a sign of brain disease.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Because you have poor circulation going to your brain as well.
Yep. Poor circulation everywhere. Yeah. So we're learning all these tips and tricks on how to live better, really. Live more healthfully. And it has this synergistic compound effect on our mental health as well. So you're gonna have these 1-hour sessions, these breakout sessions, and you're gonna talk through some things, you're gonna have things to implement in their daily life. Then what?
Well, I just wanted to share a story of a girl that came in our program. She's 24 years old and a single mom. She came to our program. When she came initially, she was dressed like a prostitute, and I kind of felt a little embarrassed because of the men that were there. But we just love everybody non-judgmentally, and we just love everyone unconditionally as they come into the program. It is a faith-based program, and she had no money, so I presented her case actually to our church, and our church said that they'd be willing to sponsor her. She wrote out, just some of the stuff that she was going through, and the church said we'll sponsor her. She was so grateful. Every week she would just absorb everything and implement it, and after the first couple of weeks, her outward appearance, her clothing just started changing, just becoming more modest, just dressing what we would consider like an average person. But she incorporated everything. She would sit in the sunshine and take her books, telling herself the truth that she'd be reading, and doing exercise. She had a little 2-year-old, and she made a full recovery. We actually had her come into our residential program that we held in Atlanta. She came and gave her testimony there. She started coming to church. She started taking Bible studies. Awesome. She was just an entirely
and she was
different
baptized.
Person.
Yeah.
Wasn't
she baptized?
She had her son dedicated.
Oh, okay. I
now.
thought she was actually baptized.
Yeah.
But she gave her heart to Christ.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
She made a full commitment to Jesus Christ. Just a complete turnaround. And it was just so beautiful to see. Yeah.
That's awesome. So it works. It works for people. I think we said on the last show it has a 90+%, rate as long as you're doing the things that are outlined. So I have a couple questions. So one, have you had anybody that they need to come back and repeat it?
Well, you become an alumni of the program, and I mean the information that is presented. There's a lot of information. I mean, this is a fairly hefty little book here, and there's a lot of information in there. And these are not the only materials that are presented. So there's a lot of the stuff that you don't assimilate the first time you go through it. Like even telling yourself the truth, you need to read this book more than once. Okay? Because some of the topics. We just teach you about nutrition. This is good for you, this is good for you, and we give you recipes and stuff. Those are pretty straightforward lectures. And the small group discussions are pretty straightforward. But then when we get into the more deeper kind of things, things of how do you recognize abnormal, distorted thoughts, and how do you fix those kind of things, then it becomes a little bit more deeper, and you need to read more, you need to study more, and it takes a little longer. And then how do you deal with loss and things in your life and the steps that you need to go through to properly deal with that. Those are more deeper kind of things. Those sessions are usually a little bit more emotionally laden and people share more things that's deep from their heart and stuff. And so, yes, many of them will come through the program again. They will read the stuff over again. And then the second time they come through, more lights go on. And they implement more things and they get even better.
Wow.
So it's exciting.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. That's one of the reasons why, to me, it's a privilege and honor to be facilitating this program, to be walking with people through the program. Because every time I go through the program, I learn something more, more that I can implement in my own life. Yeah. And I also just want to say that counseling with a Christian counselor, be very careful that you go to a Christian counselor when you take counseling. But counseling with a Christian counselor, doing Christian CBT is it complements this program very well, and I would highly recommend that. Yeah.
So for those that don't have a frame of reference, you've mentioned CBT. We didn't say CBD. We said CBT. What is that? What is? I mean, it's an acronym. What does it stand for, and what is that accomplishing?
Okay, well, it's cognitive behavior therapy. So it really is thinking about what am I thinking.
Okay.
So it's metacognition. So when we have that strong rise in emotion, that feeling, think about, okay, so what thoughts are going through my mind right now? And what evidence do I have that this thought is true? And for me, the most important thing is, what does God's word say about this? How can I replace this unhealthy, this dysfunctional thought with truth in God's word? Because ultimately, I believe this is the only source of truth that we have in the world.
Yeah.
So this is a fascinating concept, just from a spiritual perspective, because sin entered the world because of lies. And so now we're saying if we want healing, the way to healing is the way of truth. And so you have to replace the lies that are in your mind. And we tell ourselves lies. I've read this book. It's a good book. My wife told me, you need to read this book. And so we read it together. It's amazing how many lies we tell ourselves every day. And so we have to replace those lies with the truth to be healed. It's a fascinating concept. It's like we fell because of a lie. The only way out of that is the truth.
The danger about the whole thing is we live in a world of lies.
Yeah.
So the media, the movies, the television, the computer screens, they all lie to us. Okay? So we've got all these lies around us. But that's one thing. But the more dangerous lies are the lies we tell ourselves. Because they originate from automatic negative thoughts that are not true, that have been instilled in our brains through our references and experiences that we've had in our life.
Yeah.
You see? And many of those things are not true. But now what happens is firstly, I think that thought. So I'm activating my brain.
Sure.
Then I'm speaking that thought out aloud in the car while I'm driving. I've done something that's not wise, and I say to myself, "You're such an idiot, Derek. What's wrong with you?" You see? So not only do I think I'm an idiot, I say I'm an idiot, and then I hear it
Yeah, so you're
as well.
compounding
So
the
it
effect.
compounds
Yeah.
3 times, you know, and the more you tell yourself these negative things, you know, I can't do this, I'm an idiot, I'm no use, I'm no good, or whatever it may be.
I'm
You know,
worthless.
I'm worthless, you know, life's not worth living. The more you say those things, the more, so your self-talk becomes even more of a danger than the stuff that's out there.
Well, and the question to ask ourselves, right? John 8 verse 44 in the scripture says that the devil is a liar and the father of lies, right?
Yeah.
So if the devil appeared before you and he told you, you are worthless, would that be more difficult to believe? Or if he goes into your mind and tells you the lie, I am worthless.
Yeah, I think that reframing, as I also call it,
Yes.
is one of the most powerful tools in therapy. And what I like about it, because that's part of the CBT, is that you are being equipped with a tool. It's not like you're attached to this therapist for the rest of your life. You know, you are actually being given a tool, and you're retraining your thoughts. So, like, for example, one thing that I really appreciate is the idea of is there evidence for this? So, like, you might be thinking fortune telling. You might be like, and this and this and this is all going to happen. But it's like, is there any evidence for that right now? If you really think back to that, it's like, no, there isn't evidence. Is it possible? Yeah. Is there evidence right now? No. And that with that, I mean, it completely changes people when they have the different perspective, and it lowers their anxiety, because the anxiety is there because they truly believe it's going to happen, but there's zero evidence that it's going to happen.
Right.
So CBT, what you're saying is so true. CBT, actually, you're not attached to this counselor. CBT is the process of you becoming your own counselor.
Your own therapist.
Your own therapist, because you begin to recognize your own distorted thoughts and then challenging those thoughts. Are they true? Where do they come from? Who put them there? And scratching them out, the ones and scratch them until they're destroyed. And so you can actually change your brain by using your mind.
That's amazing.
See?
Yeah.
So
That's
the-
exciting.
It's incredible.
It's incredible, yeah.
So one of the sessions that we have in this little workbook and that we follow on cognitive behavior therapy that Nedley program has written is looking at the cognitive distortions. Look there, like, for example, all or nothing thinking, you know, like, you know, if I ate one slice of cake today, I've already broken my diet, so I may as well just go and eat the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? You know, already.
Or nobody loves me.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, yes.
Yeah.
Or I already messed up on this day, so, you know, may as well just. And then overgeneralization, you know.
You were
Anyway.
always late. That's what it
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
You're always late.
Yeah.
Mental filter,
know,
mind reading.
Yes, having a mental filter, like having just a very pessimistic mental filter and seeing everything through this negative view. You know, we sometimes even treat people that way. If we have a negative belief about someone, well, you know, women are just highly emotional, you know, they're not rational beings. So, you know, you can't reason with a woman, you know, or a woman might think, you know, men just have no feelings, you know, they're just not, you know, they're not loving or something like that. Then you see those people through that mental filter, which it's a tragedy, because then if that person comes, like even if you have a negative mental filter about your neighbor and you think, well, this neighbor is just such a mean person, then even the morning when he comes past your house and he waves at you and says, hi, good morning, you think, oh, he's so manipulative. What's he trying to manipulate now? You know?
Yeah. Or another one, fortune telling. You know, it says, I will never be able to overcome this problem. And that sometimes even if you keep saying that to yourself over and over, you're going to adjust your behavior according to your beliefs, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you're like, see? But it's like, but it's all has to do with your behavior and your thought process.
And then mind reading. You know, it's so easy to think, you know, just look at someone's facial expression or, you know, some aspect of their behavior and then just, well, you know, I can just see that this is what they're planning or this is what they're, you know, in the meantime, that's a cognitive distortion. No, we cannot read other people's minds. And, you know, we need to rather believe the best about someone instead of, having a negative view of them and believing the worst. Rather, let's believe the very best about the person until we're proved wrong, until they've said something or actually done something,
So I can really see how people fall into things like The Secret, because it's like believing something. If you believe it, it'll be so. And I can see like there's a bit of a fine line. But what I like is the distinction of where are you getting the truthful information. Has to be rooted in the Word of God, right? It's not just so because I think it's so. It's so because God says it's so.
Yeah.
And so you have to be careful that you don't fall into that ditch. I could see how easily it would be to fall into New Age thinking if you took the idea without the Word of God.
Yeah.
Which sadly is creeping into the church, the law of attraction. A lot of the big mega churches that you see on TV and stuff, man, it's very deceptive when they're like, you are created in the image of God, and when God spoke, things happen. So therefore, when you speak, you have His power to make things happen. It's like
That doesn't make sense.
No, it's dangerous. Yeah.
Well, and one of these cognitive distortions, picking up on what you said, is emotional reasoning. Because I feel it, then it is that way, right? And also follow your heart. Whatever you feel, that must be right.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, and we have to be very careful to base our decisions on emotions, because our emotions can lie to us. Our emotions are not a safeguard. And how often have we had something happen to us and we're very emotional, and then we make a foolish decision, and later on we're like, we're done with it, we're over it. Like, man, if I only had just waited to make an important decision when I was not emotional, right? It happens.
Right.
So the program really has, when you're looking from a treatment point of view, has two legs.
Okay.
The first leg is using all these lifestyle interventions to improve circulation.
Okay.
Like we've already discussed, circulation everywhere. It's not just to the brain, to the heart, to the lungs, to the eyes, everywhere. And so the better we get frontal lobe blood flow, the more our mind and our reasoning and our understanding is switched on. And then your second leg or arm of treatment is the cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, where you are taught, given the tools to use, to recognize distorted thoughts, to rectify those, to destroy the old ones, replace them with new ones. That takes time, that takes effort, and some people, it's recommended that you probably need about 20 hours of cognitive behavioral therapy to reinforce and to establish a permanent change that you can take on. And those are really the two things that makes this program successful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So 8-week program, but like we learned, it doesn't really end after 8 weeks.
No, it's actually
a lifetime
it's a longer,
of learning and recognizing and practicing and changing as you learn and improve. So
this is actually not a depression and anxiety recovery program. It's actually a brain-enhancing program.
there you go. Brain-enhancing program.
Out of curiosity, if anybody else is wondering, is there a Zoom meeting for this, or is it any kind of videos or audio book, or are there any other options?
We sometimes do a Zoom option. Okay. And this fall we'll be running a program that will have in-person as well as Zoom option. And on the Zoom, we can pretty much take unlimited number of people.
Cool.
The Zoom option is very nice. We do the small group session then over Zoom. But we also always like to have the in-person.
Yeah, I would encourage in-person, but
Yeah,
if somebody
possible.
can't get out of their house, or
Fairly-
maybe you're, COVID or whatever. Cool.
Okay.
Sounds like an awesome program.
Yeah.
So any other success stories, or do you know of anybody that they did this 20 years ago and been fine ever since, or anything like that you guys want to share?
Long-term success.
Well, when we were at the Emotional Intelligence Summit, Dr. Nedley had a man there who had actually become homeless. He was a pilot, a commercial airline pilot. And he went through some depression. He started making some mistakes as a pilot, and they cut his job. They fired him. And then his wife divorced him at that point. and he became homeless.
Wow. Talk about everything falling at once.
And-
Losses. Talk about losses.
Losses. And at that point, a family member said to him, "We will pay for you to go through the Nedley Depression Anxiety Residential Program."
Wow.
He came through the program, he made a full recovery, and it was 2 years later he was flying on United Airlines again.
Whoa, that's
He
impressive.
got his
Incredible.
job back. I mean, that is huge.
Same airline.
Same airline.
Same airline.
Same airline.
Took
Yeah.
him back, yeah.
They hired him back. Yeah.
Yeah, and then this other girl that was my first program that I helped out with. She was a college-age girl, was married, and I shared this earlier, or either I shared it here or the last episode, I don't remember, but about when she came in, that I greeted her and I was like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And wouldn't look me in the eye. She had no emotion in her eyes, and she shook my hand, and her hand was like this, like it was like a dead fish in my hand. And I thought, oh boy, this is a bad situation. And yeah, so she went through the program, and you could tell the first couple of sessions just looked down, and really close to committing suicide, to the point now where she is a missionary somewhere, completely recovered. Going back to school, doing a master's degree. So to look at that within 8 weeks, how someone can go from I'm going to commit suicide to I'm a happy person and I'm smiling and I'm enjoying life, is really powerful.
Like you mentioned earlier, we can all reach these places in our mind, a physical or a mental state where you would make a harsh or some kind of, you would react a certain way you wouldn't normally react.
Right.
Same thing could happen with suicide. I mean, you're going through my girlfriend left me or whatever. You'll get over it. It's a grieving period, but in that time, you may make a harsh reaction and go through with suicide. So if somebody can be with you, walk you through that hard time and let you realize, look, this will pass,
I'll share just one quick person as well. And the reason why I'm sharing this one as well is because, for people who feel when you have to accomplish something and you feel there's a wall and I can't do this, to show you that no mountain is too high or no hill is too big for you to climb over. And so this was a guy that also came to the residential program that we held in Atlanta. He was a pilot, so he's no dumbo. He's flying and stuff. And so he wanted to upgrade his pilot license to flying jet aircraft. And so he needed to do some training, obviously, and and he was going through depression. I believe there were some issues in his family life and things as well that brought some of that stuff on. And but he just had a brain fog. He couldn't focus. He actually wrote the exam a few times and failed. And so some of his instructors then said to him, "Listen, you need to really get this thing sorted out because this doesn't look good on your resume. I've passed, or I'm going to pass, but I've tried it 3 or 4 or 5 times." So they actually suggested to him not to write the exam because it doesn't look good when he keeps on failing. And he was getting really frustrated because he wants to do this. This is his job, and he wants to advance in his job. And he felt this brain fog that he couldn't see through. Came to the program, did all the things, made a full recovery, passed his exam, and he's flying his jet aircraft.
Wow.
You see, so if a guy like that can get through that, and these are not easy exams. I mean, these are significant exams to get through. They're very strict, and if you can make it, if you can clear your brain up, so you can think clearly, and you can get over your depression and your anxiety, there's life.
You can go on to be
You
a
can
jet
go on.
pilot,
You can
a
be a jet
missionary,
pilot. You can do whatever. Yes,
That's amazing.
the sky's the limit.
Yes, there's a girl that was very suicidal. She was 17 at the time and just went through a really, really, really bad experience relationship-wise, and ended up trying to commit suicide. She drank so many pills and everything. And this boyfriend of hers took her to Mexico, and she was actually abandoned in the hospital. Because he then just took off, and she was suicidal because he was cheating on her. And so an aunt of hers, her parents didn't have passports, and her aunt of hers flew out and helped her to be able to come back. And then she came through the program. Her name is Michaela. I can share her name because she shares her testimony openly. And she made a full recovery. She's now a nurse practitioner.
Wow.
Yes,
Incredible.
It's amazing just to think about
amazing stuff. Yeah.
where people, when they overcome, they can go on to help other people. You're helping in this program and missionaries and nursing. And what would happen if you would have committed that suicide?
Yeah.
All the people that you wouldn't have been able to help and bring happiness and joy to.
Right. One of the nurses, the first program that we ran in Atlanta with Dr. Nedley and them, of course, the nurse in our program, her name is Christy, and I can also share her name because she shares her testimony anyway. And she had, like, I believe it was 5 suicide attempts, one of which she had gone through a very bad divorce. And she was very depressed. She had a little boy. And I asked her about it. She said, all I could think was that my son will be better off without me.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
It's a terrible thought.
And so, like, she walked into the woods with a gun to her head and pulled the trigger. But by God's grace, nobody knows why it never went off.
Wow.
But and she ended up then going to a motel and taking fentanyl, and nobody knew where she was. Not her parents. Nobody knew where she was, and she thought that she would die. And 3 days later, she woke up on the same side. Still lying in the same position, but praise God, she woke up, and her parents at that point convinced her to come to the Weimar residential program. And for the first 7 days, she was trying to leave the program all the time. They had a hard time keeping her there, but after 7 days, she started cooperating with that program, and Dr. Nedley kept her there a couple more weeks. But she's an intensive care nurse now. She has like a ministry. She shares her testimony, and she's a blessing. She is one of the nurses in this program.
And that's a testimony to us to really be persistent with your friends and your family, because that lady was basically left for dead if it wasn't for her friends and family.
How easily we label those people as losers. As a loser.
Well, they're actually so strong.
Yeah, but actually they can make a full turnaround and change their life, and God uses the lowest moments in people's lives to glorify His name, and God uses it as a ministry.
Yeah, that testimony
That
will help
testimony
somebody
comes
else.
help somebody else. Yes.
A really simple acronym that we often talk about is New Start. And this applies to both mental health and physical health. It stands for nutrition, so a plant-based, whole food plant-based diet to avoid your vegan snacks and sugar and all that kind of stuff. And especially high cholesterol and high sugar is really bad for the brain, so you want to avoid that. So New Start, nutrition, exercise, try to walk as much as possible during lunch break. Just go for an hour-long walk. Water intake, it's both water intake. So you want to look up on the internet, how much water do I need for my weight? Because that differs per person. And then what I do, this is what I teach my people when I do the small group, is I have this 1 bottle of Nalgene. I know how much is in this Nalgene, and so I know I need 2.5 of these each day. So I wake up in the morning, I drink water, and I finish this before my lunch break. I finish the second one after my lunch break in the afternoon, and a half in the evening. So I know, it's cutting close to my lunch break. I need to drink some more. It helps so much. Also, hydrotherapy, which means contrast showers. So I believe it's 3 to 5 minutes hot as you can handle, 30 seconds cold, 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold, 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold, and if you can, you want to rest, lie down for 20 minutes. If not, whatever you can do, right? And that's going to improve your blood circulation. Then you have the S for sunlight. So just being outside. If you go for a walk, you got sunlight, you got exercise, and you got fresh air, because the A stands for air. So then you got T for temperance, which means, you don't overeat, and you're careful with maybe your media intake, those kind of things. You start air. There you go. Rest. So air, fresh air. Crack your window. Even in the middle of winter, I crack all of my windows, and I rather put a few more blankets on when I sleep than not have any fresh air. I crack the window in my office, or if you go for a walk, for example. And then rest. Get enough sleep. Get 8 hours or so of sleep every single day. Set a time for yourself, saying 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever, 10 o'clock, I'm going to go to bed. And then trusting God is the most important aspect, is restoring your relationship with God. If you get those straight, then you're going to be successful. And I want to share one more thing with that when it comes to nutrition, because you talked about things like you need to eat omega-3, which is so important for the brain. And so I have a simple recipe. You take 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, 2 tablespoons of flax, and 2 tablespoons of hemp hearts. And now you want to ground up the flax so that your body can absorb it. So what I do is I throw it all together in my coffee grinder. I don't drink coffee, I just use it for that. And then I grind it up, and then I take 2 tablespoons of that every single day until I finish it, and I throw it in some cereal every morning. And in my cereal, my healthy cereal, not your sugary cereal at Walmart, but like your healthier granola, I throw in, I'm blanking right now, pumpkin seeds, there you go. Pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, almonds, walnuts, every day. And just that, even just one of these aspects we talked about today, exercise, water, whatever, will boost your brain so much. And so you eat it every day, and you avoid your omega-3s from your fish because that contains mercury, which can cause depression. And that is going to give you a major boost. And it's so simple.
I know, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, what you're saying sounds so simple, sounds like something that everyone should have in their life every day. Yeah. But there's something changing in our society. Yeah. Most of us are sitting inside, sitting at a computer, eating junk food, not drinking enough water, drinking sodas and stuff. But it's like, wow, 100 years ago, this was probably less of an issue. And like you guys are saying, we're seeing more mental health problems come out. So,
and I just want to say that this program boosts your immune system, which is great for preventing COVID, and you're also getting better if you do have a flu or the COVID,
or any lifestyle-related disease for that matter.
Right. So, but I just wanted to expand a little bit on the trust in God portion, because that is so critical. And I want to turn here in the scripture to Hebrews chapter 2, and verse 14. It says, since all of these sons and daughters have flesh and blood, Jesus took on flesh and blood to be like them. He did this so that by dying, he would destroy the one who had power over death, that is the devil. In this way, he would free those who were slaves all their lives because they were afraid of dying. Therefore, he had to become like his brothers and sisters so that he could be merciful. He became like them so that he could serve as a faithful chief priest in God's presence and make peace with God for their sins. Because Jesus experienced temptation when he suffered, he is able to help others when they are tempted. And Jesus went through whatever we are going through.
That's right.
We can look at the life of Jesus. He went through that. He was betrayed by a kiss. When he was hanging on the cross, he was tempted to not forgive those who were betraying him and abusing him. He was tempted to take control of the situation, to fight back and protect himself. And he was abused by the priests and by people in power over him who should have been protecting him.
Physically, he relates to our abuse physically and sexually because he was stripped naked.
He was stripped naked.
That's right.
And emotionally.
And emotionally.
And emotionally, yes. And so Jesus feels our suffering, and he identifies with us in our suffering. And he is a faithful high priest in heaven right now for us. He was tempted on all points like as we are, yet without sin. And so to come to Jesus, to read in the Gospels, the first starting with the book of John, and then the book of Matthew and Mark and Luke, and to really, come face to face with Jesus, who took our suffering on him so that he can identify with us and that our story can identify with Jesus' story. That, to me, there's so much healing in that.
And we highly recommend, if you want to show it, the book by Paul Conniff.
Of course, yes.
The Hidden Half of the Gospel, where this is talked about and it had a huge impact on my life as well. If you're struggling with your relationship with Jesus or God, this is a great book to start off with.
Yes, highly recommend this book.
Where do you get it?
Go to hiddenhalf.org.
Okay.
Or Straight to the Heart.
Is it available like on Amazon or anything like that?
It might be on Amazon.
Yeah, I think it's available on Amazon as well.
Okay.
But the hidden half of the gospel, saying that, we often talk about how Jesus died for our sins, but the hidden half of the gospel is that Jesus took our suffering. And that by his stripes, the Bible says, by his stripes, we are healed.
Amen.
All right, well, there you have it. You are not alone.
That's right.
There is someone who can identify with each and every one of us on this planet, and that is Jesus. And I really liked how you brought out that encouragement in the end. And the other thing I like hearing about this program is, we talked about in the last one, there's hope, but you can see that people can recover from all these things that are afflicting us. And with simple steps, easy steps, and in a short amount of time. In fact, the whole program that you were just talking about is less time than many of those medications that people are on actually take effect after. You could be on Zoloft or Prozac or something, and it might be 3 months before you see the effect. You could be done in 2 using simple lifestyle changes and simple therapy, using the Word of God, and recover from something like depression and anxiety. So
what many people don't realize is when you start on that medication, it actually has a black box warning that it increases impulsivity. And so especially young people, who, the frontal lobe of the brain is not mature until we're 30. So young people are more at risk for that impulsivity. And when we start on those antidepressant medications, there's actually a higher risk for impulsivity and for suicidality. So,
As we're closing, will you share the link to where people can get in contact with you guys in your ministry?
Yes, drhellzinger.com.
drhellzinger.com.
And netleydepressionrecovery.com.
Yes.
And then Depression the Way Out is for the name of the residential program.
all right. Great resources. And if you missed the last program, and if there is media playing a role in your life that can actually contribute to these kind of things, 2 documentaries that we recommend are Pseudology and #Selfie. One is about the general science of what happens in your brain. The other is more focused on social media. We encourage you to check those out. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you for joining us and walking us through what this recovery looks like and how there can be hope and healing at the end of the day. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time on LED Live.
I love it. I mean, I can't watch enough of this.
The duelist who they say can speak with the spirits. The sins will destroy the commandments forever.
A suspicious list of names prompts an investigation at a local school and concern from parents.
The Death Note is derived from a Japanese animated show.
The girl told authorities she got the idea from a Cartoon Network show.
Mom, it's Mr. Satan. I recognize that voice anywhere.
Visit our brothers at schoolforprophets.tv and watch From Babylon to America, which has over 5 million views on YouTube alone, and follow it up with America to Babylon. Check the description below for links to this and more.